Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma, and I have Ian with me this week, and we're going to be diving into how we can use the principles of improv to help us in the world of transformation and leadership. But before I get to all the questions I've got for you, Ian, can you give everybody an introduction?
I'm Ian McCain. I am the vice president at Datum Evolve. We are a digital transformation firm, and I've been a main stage improviser for over 15 years. So I have a very interesting perspective on organizational change and digital transformation.
So, pulling from that idea of like organizational change, change management, transformation, all of the buzzwords, we were talking about this, and it was actually a past interview guest of mine who used this analogy that oftentimes we're afraid of change for the same reason that we're afraid of the dark. And there's like something creepy lurking in the shadows, in the unknown from what we're about to implement and the tools that we're bringing forward. So first, I want to stop with your experience in the transformation space. When you're working with clients, what are some of those things that seem to like pop out of the unknown that kind of cause challenges as we're looking at implementing technology and kind of moving through process change?
Yeah, I think you phrased that really well. So I think historically there's been this sense that people are reluctant to want to change or resistant to change. But I think change is just something that we experience all the time. And we're surprisingly adaptable. What I do think, and what I see quite often in any kind of digital transformation initiative or just organizational change on its own, is that people fear uncertainty. Like that is really the root of it. And just like like you said, the fear of the dark, it's the I don't know what's there. I don't know what could be happening. And it sets off this like psychological trigger that you future trip about all the potential things that could go wrong and imagine all the potential consequences simultaneously, when in reality, even if something bad does come from it, you're only going to experience one outcome, not all of them at once. And I think that fear of uncertainty forces people to cling to old processes, to avoid new tools, and try and wait it out. And You can't do that in the modern day. I don't see that being realistic. Yeah.
So then going to the other side of your experience that you shared with us in the intro, looking at things tied to improv, how can we use some of these ideas and principles to help our team be prepared or less afraid of this element of the unknown?
Yeah. So I think that improv is a surprisingly good tool because it lives in uncertainty. Like the entire premise behind improv is that there is no script, there is no roadmap. You literally step on stage uh, and are thrust into, I don't know what's going to happen next. So it forces you to be adaptable and have a mindset of trust and build momentum. So that like core principle that I think everyone has at this point heard, that yes and is all about embracing what's in front of you and building on that.
So beyond the yes and principle and bringing that forward to kind of help us prepare for just that piece of the unknown and being able to like kind of roll with the punches, what are some other maybe lesser known principles or rules of improv that can help us, whether it's in leadership of technology implementations or just leadership in general?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is that improv thrives on collaboration. Like it's not stand-up comedy where you're out there on your own doing the same thing over and over. It's about building an environment where the people that are working together trust each other. You don't interrupt or judge or steamroll. You listen and you build and you adapt. And I think the magic that happens on stage happens within organizations when they sort of adopt that same mindset. So one of the core things that I've witnessed firsthand and experienced and sort of lived through is the radical listening that improv teaches you to embrace. So it's not just waiting for your turn to talk, but actively tuning into what's being said so that you can respond with purpose. So you treat every idea like it's valued, every contribution matters, because judgment kills momentum in a scene, and it does the same in any kind of organizational structure. But when you build trust, it really sort of fuels it. So the same dynamic applies. Every employee from frontline to the back office, they hold real insights into how things actually work. So not just what's on an org chart or some sort of SOP, but the truth beneath the surface, the unspoken workarounds, the pain points, where there's inefficiencies that haven't been captured in some sort of process documentation. So if you involve people from the beginning and you sort of build from this collaborative mindset that you aren't stepping in with all the answers, that you have input to provide to the group, same as everybody else, and you build together, it doesn't feel like transformation or any kind of initiative is something that's being done to them. You bring them in from the start and you build it together. So it becomes like a shared mission, not a mandated compliance exercise.
I think when I look at the feedback that I get, and I create a lot of content on TikTok and I get a lot of like full feedback from people, this idea of actually like listening and not the like lip service of saying that you're listening, or telling managers to listen to what their team says, but the project is what the project is, like all of the different things that we know are happening in practice. That's one of the biggest things that people are like screaming for. Whether it's me asking like, what feedback would you have on a transformation initiative, or what feedback would you have for like leaders in the world today? This concept of actually listening from the standpoint of listening, as opposed to waiting to tell them why you're doing what you're doing, or all of the other things, is a huge, huge component that I see people like clamoring for.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartely. Like I think everybody wants to have some level of respectful collaboration. So if you're in the mindset that you acknowledge what's real, whatever the idea is, or the problem that you're facing, you accept that reality that you're presented with, you build on it together, you listen to each other as ideas are being exchanged, you value that input, you build better things together. It makes momentum instead of conflict or resistance. And that's what gets you through that uncertainty. And then there are a few other things that I would say directly translate, especially from like a leadership perspective, because culturally, you sort of set the tone in the C-suite and all the way down. You establish what is acceptable for the organization broadly, and when you embrace some of these ideas, like one of the ones that I think is a gem is make your partner look good. It's like that is one of the principles of improv. Like a good improviser isn't trying to be the star, right? They focus on making everyone else shine. So that's really powerful in leadership. You amplify other people's ideas, you give credit, you set the tone that success is shared. And that makes team members feel seen and supported. And then they also take bigger swings and reach deeper, and more innovation sort of follows from that, I think.
That's such a, like, that idea of making other people look good pulls back to one of the things I think I learned really early in my career from like probably being a little too big mouthed with my ideas of like, what if we tried this? What if we go do this? And like finding out that a lot of times when I led with those ideas, It wasn't necessarily coming back at me. It was a lot of like, well, we've tried that, or this isn't the right fit for us, or not this time. Maybe next time we can try it, that approach. And I realized that kind of like pulling on that idea of like, what if I ask open-ended questions and I help present the other people around me with the opportunity to build on ideas and like come to the aha moment on their end? And if I focus on them getting to that idea before I do, and them feeling like it was their idea, even if I felt like I had it in my mind, helped me accomplish a lot more and helped me kind of like work my way the way I wanted to through the organization. And so that's something that I would say is a skill that I'm really glad I built early in my career. But that like that idea of making your partner look good is exactly what that is, and less sneaky tricks way of saying it in comparison to the way that I've always thought about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're like, you're not just blatantly saying the like, here's the thing you should think of. You're giving like the bits and pieces that they would need to piece it out on their own, and then like you said, have that revelation of like, it would be a really good idea. I mean, meanwhile, you're like, yeah, I knew that would be a great idea. That's why I gave you some of those
your
things.
idea gets better because you had a seed that you were trying to guide, which I'm like, this happens all the time in improv. You have an idea of where you want the scene to go, and you have something you're thinking about, and you present it to that partner, and they take it and they make it 10 times better than you ever thought it was going to be, because you've got that collaborative nature that comes from that type of environment, as opposed to the stop and start that comes from shutting down ideas.
Yeah. We I remember like way back a while ago when I was first going through like the improv coaching to like learn to do it. One of the things that really resonated with me was the idea of bring a brick. That like you just said, you may have this vision in your head of what you want this scene to be, like, oh, it's going to be this, but you sort of limit how much you contribute so that others can contribute as well. Like, it's not just steamrolling with this is what we're going to do, or like, you're a doctor and we're in this location and this just happened and now we're dealing, like, no one wants to see that, and no one wants to participate in any kind of organizational ideas. We're just like, oh, okay, well, I just got to listen to your idea. But when you offer just one piece out and then build on it, it really does become a back and forth. And it makes it fun. It makes it more exciting, especially when when you embrace these other concepts together as a whole. It becomes an environment that is much more trusting. Like, you'll mess up, like something will go wrong. That's okay. Taking a chance and having it not go 100% the way that it's supposed to, that's okay. But you accept that reality and then you build on that. Like, okay, well, now that we know that this won't work out the way that we wanted, we pivot and we go this way. And that flexibility is so necessary, especially with how much technology and just everything is changing. Like, in the next year, it is going to look fundamentally different than it did 5 years ago, like from top to bottom.
Well, and I think you just hit on this idea that I think we talk about as a concept that sometimes can be hard to approach. And it's the thought process of how do we use these tools that are there with something that you do in your spare time from the improv sector of the world to create an environment that's psychologically safe. And you need that if you want to be successful, because if people are afraid to tell you their opinions, or they're afraid to give you information that's going to make you more effective or make your solution better or help you accomplish actually solving your problems, they're never going to speak up. And in order for you to do that as a leader, leaning on some of these principles gives you maybe less like formal corporate skill sets and tools to use to create that safe environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like in any kind of change, like, people see conflict as being like, well, that would be the worst outcome, when in reality it's disengagement, right? So the people who check out from the process, they're never going to re-engage and be excited about it. So you have to really have people motivated and in on the idea from the beginning. And there's no better way to do that than to start early and have them be a part of shaping what things become. Like have their voice be heard right from the get-go.
And I think we end with that mic drop right there, Ian. Thank you so much for joining me for the conversation. And for anybody that wants to learn more about how improv can inspire transformation within your organization or learn more about the work that Ian and his team are doing, make sure you give him a follow on LinkedIn. He's writing all sorts of really great content and also creating a lot of videos that you can learn from, and I think you'll enjoy. But Ian, thank you so much for joining me for the conversation, and everybody have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. If you like what you saw, be sure to come back on a weekly basis and subscribe for more expert interviews focused on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.